Preachers and teachers have known for a long time that visual aids help in their teaching. It helps to engage their listeners' ears and eyes, helps them remember things. But for a long time, we haven't had PowerPoint. That's only been recent. Before that, there were overhead projectors. But what did preachers do before that? They used what they had on hand. Visual aids had to be eye-catching, they had to be attention-grabbing, and they had to be economical. They used what they had. Here is an example of a chart that's painted on a window shade. A lot of preachers used chalkboards, but while they were economical and eye-catching, they had to be redone every time. And for traveling preachers in particular, this was a problem. So they started making charts out of bed sheets. They were durable, they were portable. It took a little time to paint them, but once they were painted, they could be used for years. You can see that they used half a sheet. The design was penciled in first. They used a ruler to draw lines, and then they painted in what they wanted the audience to see. If you look closely, you can see penciled in notes specifically for the preacher that nobody but he could see, just like the notes on PowerPoint today. Some of these were professionally painted, but most were amateur. Sometimes they used stencils, a variety of inks and paints were used. There were many different topics that were covered, some of greater artistic value than others. Again, you can see the notes here that the preacher made for himself. Preachers made up their own designs, but they also copied from others. And eventually, as the popularity of these bedsheet sermons, or sometimes called rag sermons, grew, books were published. Books of sermon charts and sermon outlines. Often there would be a sermon chart attached to an outline with an explanation of how to use the chart in the sermon. These go back to the 30s and 40s, some of them probably before, and they were definitely used through the 70s and possibly even up to today for some churches. This seems to be a Church of Christ phenomenon. We have collections of these bed sheets here at Harding. ACU and Lipscomb also have collections. The ones you see here were donated by a former faculty member named Eddie Randolph. They were owned, used, and probably painted by his father, Raymond Randolph, and his stepfather, Walter Varner, and used in the 1950s and through 70s. This is a unique example of our heritage and our history. If you happen to come across a bed sheet painted with scriptures or sermon notes, let us know. We'd love to see it. Consider donating it to a library for preservation. If you have a story or a memory of a bedsheet sermon, please include that in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Thank you.